Halloween is my favorite time of the year, and nothing gets me in the mood for monsters, mayhem, and maybe a little candy corn, quite like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I'm not saying all these episodes are the very best the show has to offer, but if you're looking for a good mix of creepy, funny, and downright spooky vibes, this list has you covered. From haunted houses to werewolves on the hunt, here are 15 Buffy episodes that are absolutely perfect for a Halloween binge. If you're making a Buffy list for Halloween, this one practically writes itself. Season 2's Halloween is the episode where costumes stop being just costumes, and the entire Scooby Gang finds themselves trapped in their outfits. Literally. Buffy dresses as an 18th century noblewoman trying to impress Angel, and suddenly she's powerless and fainting like someone out of a Jane Austen novel. Xander goes full G.I. Joe, and suddenly he's Soldier Boy, barking orders and firing imaginary weapons. Willow, meanwhile, wears a ghost costume after becoming a little anxious over her more revealing outfit. But what was she supposed to be dressed as? Because if everyone is turning into what their costume is, then I'm a little concerned. It's the perfect mix of campy fun and creepy chaos, and one of those quintessential only on Buffy sort of ideas. What really makes it work is how it flips expectations. On Halloween night, Sunnydale is supposed to be quiet. The monsters take the night off because all the fake ghouls blend in all too well. But thanks to a chaos-worshipping warlock named Ethan Rain, who pops up again later to be an even bigger pain in the ass, the costumes come alive and chaos reigns anyway. There's something inherently Halloween-y about watching Buffy, the girl who slays vampires in her sleep, rendered completely helpless by her own frilly dress, while a bunch of kids terrorize Sunnydale as actual demons and monsters. It's silly, it's spooky, and it's a perfect seasonal rewatch. Werewolves in high school gym class usually don't mix, but this season 2 episode proves Buffy can turn even a monster of the week into something truly memorable. When Sunnydale High students start getting attacked by some furry beast, suspicions immediately fly. Could it be Larry, the school bully who was recently attacked by a large dog? Or Oz, the quiet guitarist with a new lunar problem? This is the episode where we learn Oz is a werewolf, and it leans into classic horror tropes like silver bullets and full moons, while keeping Buffy's trademark humor intact. Giles, for example, is absolutely delighted to study werewolf lore, even if he's doing it in his best concerned librarian sort of way. What makes Phases especially fun for Halloween is its creature feature vibe. The werewolf design is actually pretty fun. For a little show about monsters and vampires, they never did skimp on the makeup and fur. There's a fun moment where the werewolf and newly born Angelus cross paths, and it gives you a great look at just how articulated the werewolf suit really is. And of course, it has that underlying Buffy theme, monsters as metaphors. In this case, lycanthropy is basically a puberty allegory, and it works surprisingly well. Between Oz's deadpan reaction to discovering he's the monster, and Buffy trying to wrangle a very bitey classmate, it's got the right balance of laughs and scares to feel at home on a Halloween binge. Few episodes in Buffy carry as much eerie atmosphere as this one. Following Buffy's resurrection at the start of Season 6, the Scooby Gang discovers their spell may have unleashed something else. Something dark, restless, and haunting their every move. What makes Afterlife work so well for Halloween is its ghost story setup. Strange visions, ominous sounds, and shadowy figures flicker around the Summers house, and for once the Scoobies are truly unsettled. The whole episode plays out like a slow burn haunted house tale, with Buffy caught between life and death in more ways than one. Sarah Michelle Gellar gives a beautifully haunted performance here, playing Buffy as if she's still half in the grave. The ghost isn't exactly the most terrifying monster the series ever pulled off, but the creeping dread and emotional weight behind it elevate everything. I do enjoy that the best way to defeat this demon, which is very ghost-like, is still to just chop its head off. Also, the scene where Anya becomes possessed is still one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in the series. It feels very Evil Dead. Afterlife is a reminder that sometimes the scariest thing in Buffy isn't the demon in the corner, but the trauma the characters are carrying around. Perfect for Halloween when ghost stories feel just a little too real. What's spookier than throwing a house party? Throwing a house party in Sunnydale where corpses have a bad habit of showing up uninvited. Dead Man's Party is a Season 3 episode that combines awkward social tension with a literal zombie uprising. Buffy has just returned from running away, so everyone is already on edge. Instead of hashing it out quietly, the gang throws a party, only to discover that an old Nigerian mask hanging in Joyce's living room is summoning the undead. It starts off sort of Pet Cemetery-ish with a dead cat Buffy found coming back to life, then boom, zombies. The real horror though is the tension between Buffy and her friends. All their unresolved anger comes spilling out, and it's almost scarier than the shambling corpses. This one lands on a Halloween list not because it's the scariest Buffy ever got, but because it's basically a zombie movie spliced with teen drama. Watching Xander and Buffy snipe at each other while zombies burst through the window is exactly the kind of campy chaos that belongs in a spooky season marathon. Often considered the best of the Buffy Halloween-themed episodes, Season 4's Fear itself is the show's quintessential haunted house episode, and it doesn't disappoint. The gang attends a frat house party where a magical symbol accidentally unleashes a fear demon, forcing everyone to confront their worst nightmares. Buffy finds herself abandoned, Willow fears losing control of her magic, Xander literally fades out of existence, and Oz worries about hurting people with his werewolf side. I always get a kick out of Giles in his sombrero, and Anya in her bunny costume, since it's the most terrifying thing she can possibly think of. The episode is funny, creepy, and the atmosphere feels straight out of a Halloween special. The haunted house setting gives the whole thing an old-school horror movie vibe, and the big twist that the demon tormenting them is actually only a few inches tall is classic Buffy comedy. This one's practically made for October viewings. Costumes, creepy settings, and a reminder that sometimes the monsters aren't as scary as the fears we carry around ourselves. I really love this one, but as far as the Halloween episodes go, the first one will always be my favorite. Every good Halloween binge needs at least one so bad it's good pick, and Go Fish is that episode. I know this one is not a fan favorite, but I just can't help myself when it comes to fish monsters. When Sunnydale swim team starts racking up wins, the players suddenly begin turning into scaly, fishy creatures straight out of a Roger Corman B-movie. The explanation? A shady coach and school nurse have been experimenting with steroids laced with fish DNA. Yes, really. The episode plays like a campy creature feature. The monsters themselves look pretty great, almost catfish-like in appearance, and the transformation from teen swimmer to scaly fishman is kind of gross too. There's just something delightful about Buffy the Vampire Slayer doing its best Creature from the Black Lagoon impression. It also has a hilariously gross ending, with the fish monsters showing their coach just how much they really loved him. Why are fish monsters always so, lusty? It's not scary, but it's pure cheesy fun, and every Halloween marathon needs at least one of those. One of the darkest what-if stories in Buffy history. The Wish asks the question, what would Sunnydale look like if Buffy never came to town? The answer is grim. Vampires rule the streets, humans are hunted for sport, and the Master's plan to industrialize blood draining has become a twisted reality, and also incredibly gross. Cordelia, still bitter from her breakup with Xander, unknowingly wishes this world into being thanks to a vengeance demon named Anyanka. What follows is an alternate reality nightmare where Xander and Willow are sadistic vampires. Angel is chained and tortured, and Buffy herself shows up as a hardened, world-weary slayer who doesn't know half these people at all, and also boasts some nice facial scarring. It's just creepy looking at how empty Sunnydale is, watching as people cower in fear knowing that any day could be their last. And watching fan favorites like Cordelia get killed make it especially terrifying. It's violent, bleak, and surprisingly chilly, especially as the episode doesn't fix itself neatly. The world ends in tragedy, only erased when Anyanka's power is destroyed. It feels tailor-made for Halloween viewing, familiar characters twisted into monstrous versions of themselves, with the kind of grim ending you'd expect from a horror anthology. If you're looking for Buffy at its darkest, The Wish delivers. Hospitals are already unsettling, but add a monster only children can see and you've got one of Buffy's creepiest episodes. Sick with the flu, Buffy is admitted to Sunnydale Hospital where she discovers a tall, almost skeletal demon named Derkindestad preys on sick kids by sitting on top of them and literally sucking their life out. The design of the creature, long fingers, white piercing eyes, gaunt face, and a smile only a mother could love, is pure nightmare fuel, like something out of a grim fairy tale. It's the kind of monster that feels feels ripped straight from childhood fears, and in many ways, it plays like Buffy's take on the boogeyman. He's invisible to adults, he comes for kids when they're at their weakest, and no one believes you until it's too late. What makes the episode extra effective is the vulnerability. Buffy isn't in top Slayer shape, she's weak and feverish, and for once the odds are stacked heavily against her. The hospital setting with its sterile walls and beeping machines adds a clinical dread that makes Dirk Kindestad's presence all the scarier. While not one of the series' most famous episodes, it's one that taps into primal childhood fears, sickness, death, and monsters that lurk in the dark. That makes it a perfect choice for a Halloween scare. Season 5 kicks off with a bang by bringing in the most famous vampire of them all. Yes, Buffy faces off against Count Dracula himself, and the show leans all the way into the gothic camp. Dracula is every bit the suave, hypnotic figure you'd expect. He even manages to get under Buffy's skin both figuratively and literally, hinting at her darker Slayer instincts. What makes this episode such a fun Halloween pick is just how gleefully self-aware it is. The gang's reactions to Dracula are priceless. Xander becomes his Renfield-like servant. Giles gets seduced by 3 vampire brides in a scene that is equal parts awkward and hilarious. And Buffy herself can't quite resist his charm. One of my favorite moments in the episode is when Buffy finally defeats Dracula, only for him to keep coming back to life. It has fun with the idea that no matter how many times he dies, Dracula always finds a way to return.
I'm standing right here.
While not a game changer for the series, well, unless you count the introduction of Dawn, which comes out of left field, Buffy vs. Dracula is pure seasonal fun. Gothic castles, capes, candlelight, and a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. It's basically Halloween in episode form, although I guess Halloween is Halloween in episode form. The last of the Buffy Halloween episodes, and possibly the worst, okay, definitely the worst, this Season 6 story puts the focus on Dawn, which for a lot of people might deter them from watching it. Dawn sneaks out on Halloween night to hang out with some boys, only to discover they're vampires. Oh my god, vampires in Sunnydale? What a shocker! It's a smaller, lower stakes episode compared to some of the others, but it nails the Halloween vibe. Trick-or-treating kids, costumes, and the ever-present reminder that Sunnydale is never safe, even on the one night a year when monsters should be off-duty. While the main plot centers on Dawn's poor judgment, the real fun comes from the little touches. Anya and Xander announcing their engagement at the magic box, Willow's growing reliance on magic, and Spike skulking around like the world's grumpiest Halloween chaperone. It's not the scariest Buffy outing, but as a seasonal slice of vampire action, it belongs on any Halloween watch list. Creepy crawlies, parental lectures, and a dash of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? That's what you get with Season 2's Bad Eggs. On the surface, it's your classic high school health class assignment. Buffy and her classmates are each given an egg to parent, as part of a responsibility project. But because this is Sunnydale, the eggs aren't exactly store-bought. Instead, they hatch into slimy, spider-like parasites that skitter across the floor and latch onto people's backs, taking control of their hosts like creepy little puppeteers. Before long, half the school is acting glassy-eyed and robotic, including Joyce, leaving Buffy with almost no one she can trust. The creature design is gross in the best way. Twitchy little legs, weird tentacle-like things. Actually, in some ways, they kind of remind me of the facehugger from the Alien franchise, especially when Buffy is confronted by one in her bedroom. What gives Bad Eggs its Halloween edge is the body snatcher paranoia. Friends, classmates, even family members suddenly act strange, and you're never quite sure who's still themselves and who's been turned. That classic "they could be one of them" fear is right out of a 1950s sci-fi horror, and Buffy leans into it with a mix of camp and gross-out fun. The episode also doubles down on metaphor, parenting, responsibility, and the fear of being controlled by something bigger than you. It's not one of Buffy's deepest or scariest hours, but it perfectly scratches that B-movie itch, giving you a monster of the week that's both disgusting and weirdly entertaining. Put it on a Halloween marathon when you want a mix of paranoia, creature feature energy, and a whole lot of goo. Just maybe double check your eggs. Season 1 may have had its rough edges, but Nightmares is a standout. One of those early episodes that proved Buffy could balance genuine horror with heart. When a young boy named Billy falls into a coma, his nightmares start bleeding into reality, turning Sunnydale into a waking dreamscape of everyone's worst fears. For Xander, it's walking into class in your underwear, which has always been a huge fear of mine. For Giles, it's the devastating idea that he might fail Buffy and lose her. And for Buffy herself, it's confronting her greatest fears, her father's rejection, her own death, and even the terrifying possibility of becoming a vampire. My favorite one though is possibly Cordelia's, which is having a bad hair day, because even in her nightmares, it's all about Cordy. The episode manages to be playful, creepy, and surprisingly emotional all at once. What makes Nightmares so great for Halloween viewing is how it taps into primal stuff. Fear of the dark, loss of control, monsters that live in our heads, and that damn creepy ass clown. The Ugly Man, a hulking disfigured monster with a clubbed hand, is pure horror imagery. The kind of monster that could easily walk out of a 1980s slasher flick or a child's nightmare. I still stand by my stance though that his club looks more like a baguette than a club though. And thematically, it's classic Buffy, facing your fears head-on no matter how grotesque or personal they are. While the effects and staging reflect the show's early days, the concept still hits hard. It's Buffy's version of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Dream logic, creepy visuals and all. If you're curating a Halloween marathon that leans into surreal scares and monster of the mind horror, Nightmares absolutely earns its place on the list. If you're looking for something that channels pure nightmare fuel, listening to Fear delivers in spades. This one feels like Buffy the Vampire Slayer briefly turned into a full-on sci-fi horror film, complete with a creature that looks like it crawled out of an X-Files episode or a 1950s alien invasion flick. It also kinda looks like Belial from Basket Case crossed with a cockroach. When an extraterrestrial Queller demon crashes to Earth and starts hunting victims in Sunnydale, Buffy finds herself battling a creature that's as slimy as it is unnerving. But what really makes this episode effective isn't just the monster, it's the timing. Joyce is in the hospital with a brain tumor, and Buffy is at her most emotionally raw. So when the creature slithers into Joyce's room at night, whispering and creeping over her bed, it hits like a waking nightmare. Visually, this episode is deeply unsettling. The alien's design, a slick, cockroach-looking thing that skitters across ceilings and drools mucus, is pure nightmare fuel, made even worse by the claustrophobic setting. It's that rare Buffy monster that doesn't just represent a metaphor, it's also genuinely terrifying on its own. Thematically though, the creature ties perfectly into Buffy's helplessness and fear of losing her mom. Listening to Fear taps into the primal dread of illness, isolation, and the idea that something incomprehensible is hovering over you in the dark. It's not the show's flashiest episode, but it's one of the most quietly disturbing. A perfect choice for a late night Halloween watch when the house is dark and every creak sounds like something crawling on the ceiling. Few episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer capture the cold sting of horror quite like Passion. This isn't the kind of episode that relies on jump scares or monsters. It's about the terror of losing control and watching someone you once loved turn into your worst nightmare. By this point in season 2, Angel has lost his soul and fully embraced his sadistic alter ego, Angelus. He's not content to simply torment Buffy physically. He dismantles her life piece by piece, playing psychological games with her friends and family until they're all living in fear. What makes Passion so disturbing is its intimacy. Angelus doesn't just stalk Buffy, he knows her. He knows what to say, what to destroy, and when to strike. The moment he kills Jenny Calendar is one of the show's most haunting and beautifully shot sequences. Her lifeless body arranged in Giles' bed, the candles as Giles ascends the staircase, there's no blood, no screams, just silence and heartbreak. It's a scene that stays with you, not because it's gruesome, but because it's cruelly personal. Although it does lead to the badass moment where Giles attempts to get revenge. He might be a quiet nerd, but don't mess with his loved ones. The episode's voiceover, Angelus reading his passion monologue, gives everything a poetic, almost gothic tone, like something out of an Edgar Allan Poe story. It's the sound of obsession, of love warped into something monstrous. Between the eerie score, the raw performances, and the feeling that no one is safe anymore, Passion stands as one of Buffy's purest horror tragedies. It's not the kind of Halloween story you watch for laughs or nostalgia. It's the one that lingers long after the credits roll, and honestly probably just leads to watching the rest of the season. If Buffy the Vampire Slayer were a horror movie, Hush would be the one playing in the theater at midnight. Eerie, stylish, and unforgettable. Written and directed by Joss Whedon, this season 4 standout as one of the most daring episodes in television history. For nearly half the runtime, there's no dialogue. The town of Sunnydale falls silent after the arrival of the Gentlemen, floating skeletal beings with permanent smiles who glide through the night stealing people's voices, and then their hearts, but not in a romantic kind of way. Visually, Hush is pure nightmare fuel. The Gentlemen are straight out of a dark fairy tale, dressed like Victorian undertakers with corpse-pale skin and those glassy, polite grins that never fade. Their quiet, graceful movements only make them creepier. They also sort of remind me of an old book I picked up at the Scholastic Book Fair as a kid, called Really Scared Stiff. There's this creepy old man on the cover who has this gaunt, almost skeletal-like smile, and anytime I watch Hush, I'm reminded of this image. When the Gentlemen knock on your door, you can't even scream. Every chase scene, every whispered footstep feels amplified by the silence. The sound design turns small noises, a creak, a gasp, a heartbeat into something truly terrifying. What makes Hush truly special though, is how it blends the horror with humor and emotion. Even without dialogue, the cast delivers some of their best performances, and the episode manages to be funny, scary, and oddly touching all at once. It's a masterclass in atmosphere and storytelling, the kind of episode that still feels fresh even decades later. And honestly, if I had to pick a favorite Buffy episode, Hush just might be it. It's everything the show does best. Smart, spooky, emotional, and just the right amount of twisted. Perfect for Halloween, or any night you want to remember just how scary silence can be. And there you have it, 15 Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes perfect for getting into the Halloween spirit. Whether you're in the mood for full-on monsters, creepy atmosphere, or just a bit of classic Sunnydale weirdness, this show always delivers. Buffy had a way of mixing humor, heart, and horror better than almost anything else on TV, and revisiting these episodes feels like pulling out an old favorite costume. Maybe it doesn't fit like it used to, but it's still fun and still a little scary. For me, these are the ones I go back to every spooky season, but I'd love to know what your Halloween Buffy lineup looks like. Did I miss any episodes that give you the chills? Drop your pics in the comments. I always love hearing what other fans consider the creepiest corners of the Buffyverse. Until next time, keep the lights on, avoid mysterious eggs, and remember, if the Gentlemen come knocking, don't bother screaming. Oh, and as always, stay spooky! A quick thank you to my channel members. You help keep this spooky corner of YouTube alive. If you'd like to join the crypt, consider becoming a member. No pressure, but every little bit helps keep the monster under my bed from eating me. Oh God.